All right, welcome back to another episode of the RomaPress podcast. We hope you are doing well. As always, thank you to all of our wonderful patrons over at Patreon. If you would like to join, patreon.com/RomaPress, and then the video version on YouTube at RomaPress, where you can also find all of our social media accounts as well, again, at RomaPress. And again, thank you to everyone who has subscribed, who has liked all of that fun stuff on social media. We greatly appreciate it. So, as I'm sure you could tell by the thumbnail, today we wanted to, with the international break still ongoing, we wanted to at least take a preliminary dive of Roma Milan in the Europa League in exactly what, 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks from today. It is first leg in Milano, second leg obviously at the Olimpico. Before we get into all of that, though, just a couple of other minor tidbits, I guess we can talk about prior to getting into the match. Uh, it's the international break. It's Roma. Injuries are always going to happen. Andy, it seems like though, for some weird, strange reason, the footballing gods, it was you and I are recording this on Thursday evening. I literally over the last like less than 48 hours, it seems like everybody at once, the deities decided to strike everybody at once of Roma. What's the full list? I have been having a difficult time keeping up. So we have Asmoon. He became the latest. Yeah.
Asmo is the latest, and I think it's the most serious one because
Yes.
it's even on video. You can see there is clearly a muscle strain. It's a
And
clearly
he
muscle.
immediately feels it too. You can always tell the most by the reaction.
Yeah, he goes down, and I expect that to be the most serious case, and also the most serious absence for Roma, because given what they have going on, the
Yes.
number of fronts that they're competing, and especially Romelu Lukaku not being 100% fit, as we saw even in the recent weeks with him sitting out the Brighton match, and then going on international duty with Belgium, yes, but them choosing to rest him because that's what Belgium have done so far. They have kept him with the team because they're playing friendlies, so these are not important games. Although his presence is important to the locker room, but Sardar
Yes.
Azmoun is the latest addition to this long injury list, which includes also Paulo Dybala,
Baldanzi.
who is supposed to be out for around 10 days, so hopefully back by the match against Lecce. Tommaso Baldanzi earlier today quit Italy's under 21 squad because he felt also some muscle pain. Eduardo Bove, but that is less serious because that was simply a knock in training, and I think it was just to not run any further risk. So Eduardo Bove is also back at Trigoria. Rasmus Christensen still out. So we have, a complete list of players that I think, it's not, there is no big drama. For me, just the fact that somebody like Sardar Azmoun could be out potentially, say, who knows if it's something that will last him for 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks, maybe a month. But it's that kind of absence can hurt you because we all know that when you're competing at multiple fronts at once, the players that you need most are not even your star players. The players that you need most are the ones that allow your star players to get some rest, which in turn prevents them from getting any further injuries. Sardar Azmoun has been vitally important to Roma despite not playing that much and despite not scoring that much. And yet, if I look at the reactions that we got in our patron group chat when he got injured, it almost feels like we've lost a starter.
Mm.
He's not a starter, but his contribution, I think, is just felt to an extent that in recent weeks and months, he has done enough to, whether it was replacing Romelu Lukaku or whether it was playing alongside Lukaku and replacing somebody like El Shaarawy or Dybala. Those are the players that make the difference at this time of year, and that's why when you have these international breaks, I don't know who came up with this idea of having an international break right now. We know that international breaks, especially this one, benefited the team greatly because, I forgot to add Evan Dika also out uh,
Yes.
and not on international duty. So, okay. That is good because we can have some rest for these players like Brian Cristante, who didn't was not called up by Luciano Spalletti because of back pain. But at the same time, there are guys like Asmun who are important to their national team who have to play some competitive matches, and so therefore they need to feature in those games, and therefore the risk is more elevated for them and for Roma in turn, because once again they may find themselves, say in April or May, competing at different fronts at once, and yet they have to time and time again have Romelu Lukaku out there sweating bullets. Lukaku, who, like Daniele De Rossi said, is dealing with a chronic calf
Yeah,
injury.
the
So,
hip. Yes,
it's not good. It's not good. The situation is could be better, obviously, and this Asmoon thing sort of takes away from the magic that we also witnessed today, which could be an interesting segue because today Tammy Abraham, for the first time in 9 months,
trains.
completes partially a group training with the rest of the team.
Well, his return, obviously, the timing, it couldn't be more opportune. I thought for sure, and we didn't even mention this because Gianluca Mancini initially does not get called up by Luciano Spalletti. And then for reasons, but what are we even supposed to say about it? I will just say the least surprising character of the group, if you were to pick one who would be tossed out of the Azzurri squad for some racist remarks.
I don't know if it was tossed, man. If you listen to what Luciano Spalletti had to
Well,
say, Luciano Spalletti greatly disappointed me today. He basically made it sound like he had
it
this big
was
speech in his introductory press conference. He had a big speech because somebody asked him about how serious it is for the players nowadays spending so much time playing video games when they're on international duty. Because obviously there have been cases of Moise Kean, Nicolo Zagnolo, all these guys,
yes.
you know, being late for training because they played for it. And Luciano Spalletti went on this extensive rant about the PlayStation and how the impact of the PlayStation can have on modern day players. And then when they ask him about this stuff with Acerbi, he's like, no, but he's a good guy, just like
You're
Juan
right.
Jesus.
It's right.
Come on, man.
It's
Come
like the parents from the 90s. They thought Marilyn Manson was going to cause everybody to shut up their schools or something. It's like, okay,
on. GTA, like GTA, San
right,
Andreas,
right.
gonna,
Yeah.
gonna cause
Yeah,
everybody.
everybody's going to be stealing cars and punching up prostitutes. Come on.
God.
Um, well, listen. He is a quirky guy to begin with. Not as if I need to say that. Everybody already knows that. Um, I was most disappointed because his reaction, it almost seemed as if you listen to the way he is replying on that, it almost feels like he was forced to do it, and he wasn't recognizing the seriousness of the situation and telling the guy, okay, hey, listen, obviously you can't do this. You can't be in the team until you make things right. You make an apology. You do whatever you have to do to redeem yourself. The guy made it seem as if, well, this is the situation, and he almost made it seem like it was a problem of bureaucracy, or like the higher ups at the Fujishi were the ones who made him do it, and that is the thing that just drives me mad because even in that sort of approach to it, to sort of just dismiss it and to
Yeah.
treat it so cavalier
Well, that's
it
that's why
is
that's why these things get so dragged out in Italy, and they lose all
yes,
their momentum. Like in
yes,
a situation like this, Acerbi should be banned and should be kicked out, or at least suspended until the end of the season, the bare minimum. That and the punishment should have been swift, and yet it's losing all of its momentum. And we got exactly somebody like Luciano Spalletti, who otherwise is a man I respect very much, and today just sort of, I don't know what came over him. Perhaps he expresses a sentiment that is more popular in Italian football, and is the cause for how racism and racist episodes are treated in Italian football. But going back to your point, exactly, we have Gianluca Mancini, a player who I think was in need of rest, and who, along
Oh,
with
yeah.
Cristante, was in desperate need to avoid risking himself any further. And yet here we are. And I do have a feeling that if there is a player that is going to have to play, like, I don't know, against Venezuela and New Jersey or wherever the hell they're playing, um, it's going to be Gianluca Mancini.
Yeah, I thought he and Cristante were the two, in my opinion, that above all needed the most rest. Another thing I wanted to talk about were these comments made by Huijsen. Now, I didn't even find them to be that big of a
They're not.
deal.
I don't think there are. If
Um,
you actually read the
they're
interview, they're not.
when you read the full interview, now this is something that I won't even blame the Italian media for doing this, because it happens everywhere, where instead of providing an entirety and the full context of a quotation, we get one sentence out of 10, and that one sentence can condemn you. It is that it doesn't matter what the rest of you said before or after. When people see that one sentence, that's all that matters. So, well, in this case, there was one guilty party who only put out one sentence, but I don't want to name him. People know who it is, but he only provided the sentence where Huijsen says, "Yes, I'm going to go back to Juventus." And everybody here, some of the patrons, when they initially saw that, they were saying, "Well, oh my gosh, what are
And
we,
the
a stepping
reaction,
stone?
yeah, the reaction is
Are
mid.
Roma this low? They are the step onto the next one." First off, if that was the thing that made you think Roma were a stepping stone, that is the first question that gets asked to every
Okay.
single transfer arrival above
Yes.
2 million who
Ange-
is under the
Angelo,
age of 25. Is this Roma
Angelo,
a destination or a stepping stone to make the leap of quality? I mean, my goodness, I have heard it for what seems to be 2 decades now. If this is the thing that made you upset that Roma is viewed as a stepping stone, I can find you about 2 dozen press conferences that would make your blood boil. Otherwise, we can get to that at another time. But Huijsen, when you read the full context of the interview, like every player should do, and as he did correctly and justly, he hedged
right.
his words. He didn't commit to one or the other. He said, "Well, at the end of the season, I'm going to go back. Roma, they do not have a buy option." That's a fact. I I don't know why that would
He
make
said,
anybody upset.
he said, you never know, in the future anything can happen.
Exactly.
I am a Juventus player. I will go back to Juventus and make myself available to them because they are the club that discovered me. But at the end of the day, obviously, it all comes down to so many variables because Huijsen couldn't go and perhaps earn himself an incredible market value, and then some Premier League club comes in and Juventus give him up, or maybe they don't,
Correct.
and they decide to loan him out again to Roma and perhaps bet on him next season or the season afterwards. And so I think with these things we always have to tread carefully because these are players. I mean,
Yes.
somebody like Huijsen, 18 years old, um, clearly with huge potential, clearly being already eyed by a number of top clubs, much
Yes.
bigger than Roma, much bigger than Juventus. And someday, if he continues the way he plays now with this kind of confidence and expanding his range of skills, which I think is limitless, he will end up in some very big club in the next 2 to 3 years. Um, but with Roma,
Well,
this
don't
is
say that to some people. They're going to take offense to it because then by definition that would mean Roma is a stepping stone. But I hate to I, I I know I say sometimes our self esteem is too low, but we can't have such a high self esteem to think that. I mean, come on, let's
no, definitely,
come on, let's be
it's
serious
normal.
now.
It's happened in the past. God knows. I mean, we all remember
Oh,
Marquinhos. Um, so it's happens. It's when you have a prodigy, and I do really think that who is in can turn out to be that kind of guy. Um,
yes,
Also, these questions are always exactly meant to find and get that answer of, well,
Every time, yes.
I go to Juve because they are the club that believed in me. Obviously, I will not sit right with a Roma fan because Juve believed in him, yes, but to up to a point. Juve were not going to give him any minutes with Massimiliano Allegri on the bench. It was just not going to happen. And I think part of why his future remains uncertain is because Juve still do not know if they will continue with Massimiliano Allegri, since he still has one more year left on his contract as manager, or whether they will go in a different direction and hence need someone younger like Huijsen to also become part of their future. With
Well,
Roma,
exactly.
Huijsen was nothing planned. I mean, Huijsen was not planned. Huijsen was an improvised deal that was a great
Correct.
opportunity for Roma, a great opportunity by Tiago Pinto, who thought, I think the reasoning was very simple. It was do we want to go for somebody like Soyonku and you know exactly what you're getting, or do you want to go for something exciting like Dean Huizen and see if that can also work out? And Huizen has proven that he's not dependent on one manager, because Mourinho comes in. Mourinho is the guy who sort of draws him to Roma instead of Frosinone. And what, 2 3 games later, he has Daniele De Rossi on the bench instead, and he still performs just as well, if not better, with De Rossi on the bench. So for Huijsen, it's as a lot of times it happens at Roma and in Italian football. Much ado about nothing. You know, it's just molto rumore per nulla. There is a lot of this talk, a lot of speculation, especially in in international break. What else are you going to talk about if
Yes.
not the transfer market? Because Dino Huijsen is already being linked with Arsenal, Manchester United, Newcastle United, Borussia Dortmund. So it's normal. And this is an 18-year-old who has played what 10 games in Serie A,
Right.
and he scored 2 goals, and he's shown signs that there's still so much to uncover, that there's still so much for him to address in his game, that he still has is so versatile, has so many things to offer as a player. We don't even know if he is truly a center back. So
Mm.
that's all up for debate. Those are things that you have to deal with if you're a club like Roma and you're desperate. And Roma in January, when they signed Huijsen, it was out of pure desperation.
Well, I do in my mind laugh a bit as well because I can vividly recall even during that operation when it was first announced that they were going to get him on dry loan, how offended not even just the patrons, but how some of many supporters of Roma took it as far as, well, what are we, a club to harvest and have this guy grow? It's like, what? Yeah, 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 yeah. When you're as desperate as you just said, as Roma was
People
in
don't realize.
January.
I think this recent high has sort of canceled out the feeling that we had in January. First
Uh,
week of January, how freaking desperate were we? In need of everything and anything, not even on the pitch but off the pitch as well. We needed some security, some sense of safety, and here we have an 18-year-old kid from Juve's under 23 squad.
who had what, just weeks
12
prior made
12
his.
minutes of Serie A, 12 minutes of Serie A.
Right, right, right. It is just interesting to see. Listen, he is a young player. He is asked a question that, as you correctly pointed out, is meant to do one thing and one thing only. It is meant to grab a headline, just as the absolute imbeciles who ask the question to begin every single unveiling of a player. Do you view Roma as a destination or as the place to take the next step in a leap in quality? It's meant to do one thing. They are not genuinely curious to ask that. And by the way, no player, when you just arrive at a club, is thinking already of to leave. Just please stop with this. Um, he gave the absolute correct answer because if he says, I want to stay, well, if Roma can't come up with an agreement with Juve, what is he going to do? Go back there and be viewed as, the cast out? Of course not. And if he says
Absolutely.
no, I don't want to stay, well then he's going to be cast aside for the remainder of the season. So come on, let's I was shocked at how many people were actually in our patron group chat because I did not think twice of it. I didn't even think about it more than a minute.
It's always like that. I mean, people have to consider into these interviews. There goes so much PR stuff. I mean, you have probably
Yes,
his agent who's like, okay, now if they ask you about this, you're gonna have to say this, this, and this. You have to state facts. So you state a fact, and if you read that answer of his, it's fact after fact. Roma have no buy option. That's a fact. The future, you can never tell what's gonna happen. That's another fact. And then I will go back to Juventus and make myself available to them because they're the first club to believe in me, which is another fact because that's what he has to do contractually. It's like Andrea Bellotti. He is at Fiorentina, but there is no buy option, so he can love life in Florence. But once the season comes to an end, Andrea Bellotti is coming back to Trigoria. Whether he trains with the team, that's another discussion point. But his future, then his near future, is still at Roma, just like Huijsen's is at Juve.
correct. It is. It is what it is. I wouldn't put too much stock into it again. Anything that's said publicly, anyway, we should always put very little stock into. Okay, I can't believe we spent that much time on it. Roma Milan. Let's go to that. It's just a couple of weeks away. The first leg at San Siro, and then again the return leg at the Olimpico. I don't know currently how I feel about this because I watched this Milan, and from week to week, very much so, like Fiorentina, I've described them this way, and even Roma at times are this way. You truly do not know what sort of team you are going to get. I mean, if you look at some of their defeats this season, Andy, they are about as bad as you can get. I don't know how many of you watched them against Monza. It was I was lost for words when I was watching that. I couldn't believe how ineffective, how nearly everything they attempted to do just did not come off. And even in some of the victories that they have, they are just barely. And by the way, well, I do think that this could be said because I do, in a way, even when you play like crap, which listen, Stefano Pioli, nobody is ever going to mistake the
But
way
that's what
he
I wanted
views
to
foot.
touch upon. I wanted to touch upon. I think this is a clear case of a team that is playing despite the coach. Stefano Pioli's time at
Yes,
Milan has come to an end.
yes,
You and I can finally sit here and wave the flag of victory because you and I have been the greatest advocates of Stefano Pioli being a shit coach. Because he is a shit coach. He will continue to be a shit coach no matter if he won the Scudetto with Milan or not. He is the reason why this team right now is not playing for another Scudetto against Inter. He's holding them back. All the victories that they've registered in recent weeks are all thanks to individuals. Christian Pulisic having a great time. Olivier Giroud, a leader, an absolute unit of a player for Milan. All of these guys have been performing. Teo Hernandez, they've been performing despite Stefano Pioli. I mean, Teo Hernandez have been playing as a center back for the majority of the season because Stefano Pioli
yes.
and his staff have been murdering players in their sleep, injuring them in their sleep. Stefano Pioli's time at Milan has come to an end, but that's what makes this Milan team all the more dangerous in my eyes. Is they're unpredictable. You don't know what you're gonna get from them. Uh, as a team, as team play right now, they've been playing really poorly against Slavia Praha. They were not good. They were not good. Same with Stade Rennais. They were not good. They won thanks to individual quality, but that's what
Yes.
I'm afraid with Roma. When it comes to reading a team like Milan, you cannot expect them to have patterns. You cannot expect them to have a coherent style of play that you can study because right now Milan are running on fumes, relying solely on individual quality, and that to me is perhaps something that we haven't yet touched upon with De Rossi at Roma. De Rossi at
Mm,
Roma has so far faced teams that had a clear identity, whether they were poor or not poor, whether they were good, well trained or not. I mean, like a team like Monza, you can study them because Palladino has found a way to have them play. You can question the individual quality. You can question what happens on the pitch and how Paladino's instructions are translated. But same thing for Fiorentina. Fiorentina have a distinct way of playing. Milan right now, they do not. Milan do not make sense. Milan fans are very angry with Pioli. Everybody seems to want him out, although
Yeah,
he
he and
still has.
Allegri, man, they're going to get their marching orders, even despite finishing top four, which I find
And
interesting to say the least.
both of them have still one more year on their contract, so that
Correct.
will also be
Yes.
interesting because both of them have egos the size of an elephant, and it's not going to be easy getting them out.
Yes.
So when you're looking at this Milan encounter, to me, what jumps at me immediately is you cannot, and you've mentioned the name of that stadium so many times in recent weeks, the San Siro, because of that being, ironically, Jose Mourinho's last game. And obviously, he was in the stands for that game when we lost to Stefano Pioli's Milan. Um, that you cannot let San Siro affect you.
No.
You have to be able to contain exactly this individual quality that Milan will rely upon, um, going into this game, in order to then be able to stun them at the Olimpico, where you dictate the rules, where you are the one who sets the tempo, where you are the one who has the style of play that is needed to win the game. So that's Roma cannot be caught sleeping, because Milan, despite being an absolute mess right now, they still have the capabilities to hurt you.
They absolutely do. And that is something that I have even praised Roma for in recent weeks, where even when you don't play well, you still manage to get a result. I can't get Milan that match, that defeat they had to Monza out of my head because they were, it was so bad that it is difficult for me to even believe that this team is. I mean, by all account, well, not by all accounts. I mean, if we just want to take facts, if we want to look at the concrete data, this is the second best team in Serie A. I would say probably that is more an indictment on Serie A this season. However, the table says this is the second best team in Serie A. And I watched them. And as you mentioned, as far as identity goes, I cannot, for the life of me, understand what sort of team this Milan is. You know what it actually reminds me of are the final days of the era of Rudy Garcia, when it was basically hoof the ball forward to Gervinho and pray he can take somebody on one, pull out a defender, and maybe he will
Milan
even
is the
score a
same.
goal.
It'll replace Gervinho with Rafael Leao and Christian Pulisic.
Yeah, I mean that is the sense I get. Where, as you said, this is purely. This is not about tactical brilliance. This is not about teamwork. This is not about having a cohesive unit, being able to exploit an opponent. This is very good, skilled individuals, as you said, overcoming the very clear deficiencies of their manager. And this is the thing where I come out on it, because when we had the draw, I mean, you and I both said either Atalanta, West Ham, but whatever, it didn't happen. But something does have to be said. Yes, listen, Milan wiped the floor with Roma both times this season. We
Embarrassed.
have to accept that.
So
Yes, I mean, both meetings, even because the first game is
first
at the
game we were
Olimpico.
absolutely crushed from a physical standpoint.
Oh, dismantled. In fact, even
Chris
because,
Smalling's
as we all remember,
Chris Smallings didn't recover after that game. I mean, that was so bad of a display just overall. And then we
that kept that, that was the thing that nearly killed the guy. And I do find it a bit humorous in the fact that, as we remember, prior to that match, there was a certain unveiling of a certain player that, I mean, it looked like something that would have come out of Hollywood. Didn't quite eclipse the welcome that Paulo Di Paola got, but my goodness, that was prior to the match, and that party ended very quickly. We have to accept that. I mean, listen, I understand that Ossi is here now. I understand that Jose Mourinho is no longer here. I understand that Roma played nothing even remotely resembling the way they did under Jose Mourinho. But we can't discount that because forget the tactical stuff. There is a mental component to that coming into it, regardless from Milan's standpoint, as to who the opponent is, whoever is on the bench. We already know coming into this. We have not only have we defeated you twice, we've dismantled you twice. Roma were in neither of those matches. Let's remember the first one was what, 2-1? Roma were never in that match because I believe the goal of Roma came late,
No, no,
just
yeah.
as it did at San Siro. Okay, Roma were at no point in either of these matches against Milan
No,
this
they were not.
season.
No, never.
Never, never. It was one-way traffic, and that's it. Roma, they were not there. They did not exist in either game. Now, of course, there is something to be said that yes, we have a new manager, and they don't know. They haven't faced us playing in this manner, in this new way, and obviously, our confidence is going to be different than it was prior. But I still can't discount that massive. I can't underscore this enough. I mean, just coming into this, no matter how shit Milan is playing, no matter how crap Stefano Pioli, his tactics have been this season, they come into this. The second they step on the pitch, they know we have dominated them twice this season. In fact,
Especially at
the
San
second,
Siro. Yeah, yeah.
yes, and the second time, in fact, we dominated them so much that they had to get a new manager.
Yeah.
So no matter what tactical faults Milan may have, I having that massive, massive
Absolutely.
mental advantage on your side coming into this one, I think it is a big component that cannot be downplayed because we
Absolutely.
can't just those we can't act as if those two matches didn't happen just because we have a new manager. They happened, and
No,
they were
I
there was a
it's like,
significant gap.
dude, it's like we're gonna face Lazio soon. Lazio, I mean Lazio. Like, we haven't scored against Lazio. Yes, I think it
Yeah,
was.
do we want to talk about what that match will look like? Oh my gosh.
I think it was yesterday that Roma celebrated Tammy Abraham's opening goal in the first minute of that derby. That was the last time that we scored against Lazio. That was 2 years ago, and yet Lazio found a way to get rid of Sarri. Sarri resigns as Lazio manager, so we are going to face Lazio with a different coach, but Lazio will also have, just like Milan, the notion that hey, we're the team that you cannot beat, that you haven't beaten, that we are the team that we treat like some kind of Salernitana, because that's how we've been treated by Milan and Lazio over the last couple of years. So this draw, in my opinion, is not ideal. This is not the kind of draw I would have wanted. I said it even in the episode. I said, just don't give me Milan because they piss me off. Um, and they do because Stefano is the sight of Stefano Pioli, a manager who should aspire at the most to coach the likes of Catania. So obviously not there anymore. Uh, should not be on that stage. I just wish for Roma to understand what the assignment is. You cannot treat this game like Brighton. You cannot treat this game like Feyenoord. You have to treat this game with the same kind of individual passion and drive that the Milan players have shown in both those matches. In the third match of the Serie A calendar this season, and Jose Mourinho's last game as Roma manager in charge, where the Milan players were on a mission. They were mad. They were mad at Pioli. They were mad at the fact that this guy cannot set them up right, and yet they still win despite of that.
That is the thing that for me, that is one way or another, we're going to see what sort of growth Roma has made. As you just said, I can't, and nor should anybody, no matter how bad Milan have been, Roma have not been able to do anything. And the thing I find most humorous is actually, do you remember the level of success Roma had just prior to Stefano Pioli against Milan? I mean, I still vividly remember that match where they won at San Siro. I think it was 3-1, where Gigio Donnarumma, I think he had two very bad mistakes. I believe that was the season of Paulo Fonseca. I may be wrong. Do you remember which one I'm talking about? Where Gigio Donnarumma He was playing the ball out from the back twice, and he made two of the worst mistakes that I think I've
That
ever
could
seen a
have been under
goalkeeper.
Fonseca. Yeah, that could have been under
Yeah, I think that was Fonseca, which
with Javier Pastor. Was Javier Pastor involved?
I listen. There is
I
one
think that
match
could
of
have been.
Javier Pastore that, and you know exactly which one I am talking about. That remains vivid in my mind. That I am only to remember without wanting to stab my eyes out. And
The
that was
Lazio,
against a team that drew Liverpool. So I
the Bergamo backheel,
well, that
the back
truly,
heel. Yes,
I do think he sold his soul for that goal at Roma, because that that was a signal that again, how we have the years of BC and the AD for him. It was
yes,
before the heel and after.
absolutely, absolutely.
Um, it is interesting because the gamesmanship, so to speak, coming into this, it just the mental component of this one for me is so much higher than the tactical. Then I would say even two. Both sides are going to have minor injuries. Um, I just think this mental component. No matter how crap you have been in a season, to face an opponent that you know you have dominated twice already in the same season, that is, no matter how low you are, no matter how far your self esteem has sunk, there is no better medicine, yeah, than it's kind of like your ex partner coming back to you, saying, "Oh well, I thought I could do better," and then they come back crawling to you, and you say, "Mm-hmm, here we go again." Welcome back.
I
I might
think
be
we have to.
projecting.
I think when one day we will have to get into the fact why I reference so many movies and why do you make so many allegories to between football and breaking
well,
up or getting back together
no,
with some.
well, listen. I guess this is sort of where I come out to that.
Oh,
No
okay.
matter how low the situation may be, no matter how bad you may be feeling, there is always that one
You're still not
instance. There is
dealing with
always
an
that
ex
one
girlfriend.
character that you meet that, no matter how low you feel, you are able to, bring yourself up, and that
Absolutely,
is what I fear most.
absolutely.
Now, I would not even be saying this had it been, Milan pulling out the victory in both matches at the very last minute. I mean,
No, no, no. You're gonna
I
go.
don't
You're
want to
gonna go.
revisit. I don't want to revisit both of these
I
matches.
don't
But
think you
Andy,
should.
I mean, I
You're gonna
remember the
go up
episodes that I
against.
did after these. These were Roma were never under at any point in either of these matches did they put Milan under pressure, under threat.
Yeah.
Um, this was a match in both instances, home and away, where there was only one team on the pitch. So yes, Daniele De Rossi is the manager, but I still feel as if those two victories hold a much greater weight in mental mental strength, and sort of having that extra like an extra life, so to speak, an extra elixir in the pocket. Then we have a new manager and we play completely different tactically.
I agree.
We're not going to do a prediction, yeah. I mean, we just went on for like 20 minutes.
Yeah, I
I,
know.
I, I
There's
listen,
no prediction. There's
they
no
can
prediction.
do it. I mean, I know
There's no prediction.
we just went on for 50 minutes as to why they can't do it. They can do it.
No, they can't. No,
Milan has showed.
I never said. I never said they can't do
No,
it.
but I know, but
I never ranted against I just, yeah, I agree with you that it can hold some, so it can loom over this team, or maybe it can be a great liberation for Roma to just feel like, hey, we've changed, and here's what you can expect from us, and go up and do it. I just don't think that there are any expectations set for the Europa League at this moment in time. I think the focus will remain until the very end of the season, the Champions League, because right now you're fifth, you're behind Bologna, you're ahead of Atalanta. Still, they have one game to play against Fiorentina, but
yes.
that is where the focus will be. The Europa League right now is just going to be a bonus, and including this Milan draw, where anything can happen between the two teams.
Yeah, absolutely. We will have to see. Obviously, we will talk more of it as we get closer to the date. We will leave it there. Again, we won't be back after the weekend, once the international break draws to a close, and we prepare for Roma to begin this final stretch of the season. So until next time, ciao.